Okay, good afternoon. So, for this topic, we will be dealing with the history of biology, genetics, and ecology. Also, this afternoon, we will define biology, genetics, and ecology. Also, I will give a brief history of these fields of sciences, the scientists and their contribution to these fields, and the current discoveries on the field of biology, genetics, and ecology. Also, for this afternoon, the objective of this lesson is to describe biology, genetics, and ecology, recognize how these fields was developed, also to identify the different proponents of the biology, genetics, and ecology. So, life sciences or biological science is comprised of branches of science that involve the scientific study of life and organisms such as microorganisms, plants and animals, including human beings, us. So discoveries made in life science are helpful in improving the quality and standard of life and can be applied to different fields such as health, agriculture, medicine, as well as in pharmaceutical and food science industries. Also, life science enables an understanding of the environment and the other living species which we share with. Diba? We are coexisting with different organisms that live also or inhabit on Earth. So the knowledge on life science will guide us or will guide us in conservation efforts and help us to save our shared planet. Shared planet because, as I have said, we are living with or we are coexisting with the different kinds of organisms that inhabit the earth. So we cannot define the fact that we science teachers, one of the hardest part of being a science pedagogue is to impart or to promote environmental awareness in our students, right? So yeah. So it also empowers us to answer the fundamental questions about ourselves, such as where did we come from? What are we made of? What is the basis for the miracle of our existence or for the miracle of life? What is our place in the natural world? Or what is our place in the tree of life? Life science also reveals the truth of our existence and shines a light in our real identities so that we discover our true reality. So that is the very purpose or the very essence of life science or the biological science. So let's define first biology. Okay, so this is a very classic definition. Biology is the study of life on Earth, and traditionally, the history of biology is diversified into two wings. Okay, studies on medicine, theories of natural world. Also, the term was coined after combining two Greek words, bios meaning life and logos meaning study or discourse. So, yeah, biology is the study of life on Earth, and the history of biology, however, focuses on the advent of life on Earth right from the ancient times. Biological discoveries have a remarkable impact on human society. Traditionally, yeah, as being reflected here, it is diversified into two wings, studies in medicine and to the theories of natural world. So the root of biology, the term was coined from Greek word which is bios meaning life and logos meaning discourse or study. So science dates back to the secular tradition of ancient philosophies. Learning about the history of biology is an attempt to understand the evolution of science. So basically, biology is the science that studies living things and their vital activities. It takes its origin from natural human desire to know what living things are and what they do, but also more generally from a practical interest in acquiring food, clothing, shelter, protection, and in curing diseases. Okay, so that is biology. Now let's tackle the uh, a brief history of biology. Okay, so Biology started from the Greek period. The origin of biology is a science seeking knowledge of living things for its own sake rather than for the sake of contributing to a well being, and is found above all in the works of Aristotle. So, in science, we know that Aristotle is the father of biology. So, he became interested in the if what is or where is the core of the human intelligence, and he concluded that the core of the human intelligence is the heart, which we know that is not true, right? That is untrue. And with the work of Aristotle during these times, he was able to contribute to the field of the human body and medicine. Okay, so after the Greek period, it was followed by the Roman period. About the middle of the second century BC, Greece succumbed to the Roman legions. The Romans made contribution in politics, but their interest in science was primarily in its application. Thus, in biology, both medicine and agriculture were encouraged because of their importance to the welfare of army and the empire of the note of Pliny, Dioscorides or Credus and Galen. Okay, so these are three persons here: the Pliny, Dioscorides, and Galen. So they are the main persons behind science during the Roman period. Okay, it was also followed by the Renaissance. During the Renaissance, the sciences flourished. Biology did not, however, develop quite so rapidly as physics did. The reasons for this are the object studied by biologists is much complex, and that the mathematics, a powerful tool for physicists, is of relatively little use in biology. Moreover, it was oftentimes knowledge of physics that was behind the development of biological instruments such as microscope. After Renaissance, it was followed by the 18th century. So during the 18th century, new impetus was given to biology by the comparative method applied to anatomy and embryology. The classification or the taxonomy of living things, as well as the system of naming or the binomial nomenclature, were standardized. Okay, so during the 19th century, advances for far-reaching in their effects were made in biology. The enunciation of the theory of evolution colored the thought of the period in many fields extraneous to biology. And during the 20th century, the advancement of technology furthered biological research, particularly with respect to the understanding of microbiology and genetics. Okay, so that is the brief history for biology, how biology was started. So again, it started from the Greeks. So the Greek philosophers were the first biologists, or yeah, the first the first persons to contribute to the field of biology, and Aristotle was referred to as the father of biology. Okay, so now let's move on to the famous scientists and their contributions. So I only give five. Of course, there are a lot of scientists in the field of biology. Let's start with William Harvey. Harvey was fascinated by the blood flowed through human body. Most people of the day believed that the food was converted into blood by the liver and was consumed as fuel by the body. Harvey knew this was untrue through his first-hand observation of human and animal dissection rather. Next is Lamarck. So John Baptiste de Lamarck, often called as Lamarck, was a French naturalist. He was a soldier, a biologist, an academic, and early proponent of the idea of that evolution occurred and proceed in accordance with natural laws. After being injured in army in 1766, he returned to medical studies. So we all know who is Lamarck is. Lamarck has three theories. So he is one of the famous, let's just say, evolutionists who contribute to the theory of evolution aside from Darwin. So Lamarck has three theories for the theory of evolution. First is the theory of need, which states that organisms changes in response to their environment. Second, the theory of use and disuse, which states that organs not in use will disappear, such as the vestigial structures that we have, and also with other organisms. And the third is the theory of acquired characteristics. So the classic example for the theory of Lamarck is the giraffe. So Lamarck believed that giraffe originally they have shorter neck, but in order for them to survive or to thrive in the environment wherein they uh they kept on stretching their necks until they develop a long neck that can help them to reach along the peak or the canopy of the tree. So it was disproved by, and also according to the theory of acquired characteristics, he believed that the characteristics, the acquired characteristics of the giraffe, which is the long neck, can be inherited by the offspring of this giraffe and can be passed on to the next generation of giraffe. So the scientists disprove the theory of Lamarck because we know that that is not true. Changes in the physical characteristic of an organism cannot be passed on to the next generation or to the offspring. Okay, so one for the example is that if a woman will change the color of her hair from black to blonde, do you think it can be inherited as well by the offspring of that woman? Of course not, right? So also, for example, if a young person will use whitening soap to achieve fairness of skin, do you think it can be inherited by the offspring of that young woman? No. Okay, so that is the reason, why the theory of Lamarck was disproved during this time. So 50 years after that is now Charles Darwin proposed his theory of evolution based on natural selection. Okay, that is Lamarck. Okay, so Charles Darwin, so again, right after the theory of acquired characteristics, 50 years after the theory of acquired characteristics of Lamarck, Charles Darwin make his own theory of evolution based on natural selection. So we know what Charles Darwin is, who Charles Darwin is, rather. So if Lamarck believed that giraffe originally had shorter necks, so according to Darwin, he believed that giraffe had varying neck length. Some giraffe have short necks, giraffe have longer neck. Okay, so we already know what is natural selection. It is about survival of the fittest, and the environment will set the standard if who will survive. For example, since the giraffe are feed on tall trees, so those giraffe with shorter neck will eventually die since they cannot feed themselves. Okay. Next to Charles Darwin is Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose. Is one of the most prominent first Indian scientists who proved by experimentation that both animals and plants share in common. He demonstrated that plants are also sensitive to heat, cold, light, noise, and various other external stimuli. Okay, we also have Rosalind Franklin. So basically, Rosalind Franklin, she is the one who discovered the double helix shape of the DNA. Okay, so let's move on with Filipino scientists and their contribution in the field of biology. First is Dr. Angel C. Alcala. So he worked for the conservation of tropical marine resources and invented an artificial coral reef that are to be used for fisheries in Southeast Asia. He is known for the research of Philippine amphibians and reptiles, which led to the addition of 50 new species of reptiles and amphibians. And also, he contributed 10% of discovered species here in Philippines, species of organisms here in Philippines. Next is Dr. Edgardo Gomez. He is a Filipino national scientist, just like Dr. Alcala. So Dr. Gomez researches marine ecosystem and is a well-known marine biologist. His work on coral reef led to saving the true giant clam from extinction. Next is Dr. Eduardo Kasim, also known as the father of orchidology here in the Philippines. He is an authority of Philippine plants. He has published numerous papers, many concerning medical plants like orchids. He has received many awards like the Distinguished Service Star in Botany and the Diploma of Merit in Orchidology. Next is another Filipino national scientist, a member of NASTFIL, Dr. Priscilliano M Zamora. Dr. Zamora has done work in the xylem of elements of vascular plants. His research on ferns has led to the discovery of additional species. He has also contributed to the conservation of natural resources and environment policy research. Next is Dr. Carmen Velazquez. So Dr. Velazquez has studied parasites and other hosts in the fish or fish parasitology. She discovered 32 species and one genus of digenetic trematodes on fish populations. She also discovered 2 new trematode species on birds and 5 on mammals. She also discovered a parasitic copepod and 2 new species nematodes. Okay, so those are the famous scientists, foreign scientists, and Filipino scientists together with the contribution in the field of biology. So now let's proceed with the current discoveries in the field of biology. First, 3D printing of organs could make organ donation obsolete. Specific drug targeting could lead to the end of cancer, and mitochondrial DNA spring cleaning could prevent aging. So now let's proceed with genetics. Okay, genetics is the science of heredity and variation. Heredity, when we say heredity, it is the biological process of transferring genetic information and physical traits from parents to their offspring, which came from the Latin word hereditatem, which means condition of living ear. Okay, so genetics is the science that deals with heredity and variation. And on one hand, heredity, it was defined that heredity is the biological process of transferring genetic information and physical traits from parents to offspring. The origin of genetics is traced back in the development of theories of evolution. So the field of genetics also played a part in the theory of evolution that is used by Gregor Mendel. Okay, so history of genetics. So it started during the 19th century when a man has long observed that similar traits tend to be found among families. However, it was only until the 19th century that this field was begun to be studied scientifically. The origin of genetics is traced back in the development of theories of evolution. As I have said, it was also used by Gormendel in studying the theory of evolution. He also the genetic play a vital role in the theory of evolution by Gregor Mendel. Okay, so during the early 19th century, it was during this time that the Mendelian principle and chromosomal theory of inheritance was established. Mendel's work was largely unknown. It was not until 1900s that there was a rediscovery of the Mendelian principle and the publication began citing his work. During mid 20th century, it was in 1870s that the material in the nucleus was determined to be a nucleic acid. DNA was determined to be a genetic material between 1920s and mid 1950s. Griffith's experiment was a bacterial strain established the theory. During mid-late 20th and early 21st century, this period heralded the concept of the molecular biology and molecular genetics. Various advanced technologies made their way into knowledge based around this time. This included the molecular biology, recombinant DNA technology, and biotechnology methods. Okay, so let's move with the famous scientists and their contribution in the field of genetics. Hermann Joseph Muller, so he is American geneticist, best remembered for his demonstration that mutations and heredity changes can be caused by X-ray striking the genes and chromosomes of living cells. His discovery of artificially induced mutation in genes had far-reaching consequences, and he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine in 1946. Next is Sir Ian Wilmot. So he is a British developmental biologist who was the first to use nuclear transfer and differentiated adult cell to generate mammalian clone. A thin Dorset sheep named Dolly was born in 1996. So he is the biologist to clone a sheep called Dolly. Next is Francis Collins, who he is an American geneticist who discovered the genes causing genetic diseases. Collins-led team found the gene cause neurofibromatosis, a genetic disorder that generates the growth of tumors. He also served as a leading researcher in a collaboration of 6 laboratories that in 1993 uncovered the gene that causes Huntington chorea, a neurological disease. We also have James Watson, an American geneticist and biophysicist who played a crucial role in the discovery of the molecular structure of deoxyribonucleic acid or the DNA, the substance that is the basis of heredity. Yeah, so DNA is the basis of heredity, which contains the genetic information of a cell. For this accomplishment, he was awarded the 1962 Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine together with Francis Crick and Maurice Wilkins. Next is Dr. Wang Woo-suk, a South Korean scientist whose revolutionary claims of having cloned human embryos from which he extracted from stem cells were discredited as fabrications. In 2005, Dr. Wang debuted the first cloned dog named Snappy, an Afghan hound. Dr. Wang earned a name for himself by developing methods for cloning cows and pigs. And so let's move on with the Filipino scientists and their contribution in the field of genetics. First is Adelina Baryon. She is a Filipino entomologist and geneticist whose extensive contribution to the study of Philippine spiders earned her moniker Asia's Spider Woman. Although she has also contributed significantly to the study of other species, to the study of genetics in general. Next is Dr. Cynthia Saloma. She is currently a professor of molecular biology and biotechnology and a principal investigator at the Laboratory of Molecular and Cell Biology, or LMCB, in the National Institute of Molecular Biology and Biotechnology in University of the Philippines, Diliman. She pursues research towards embryonic organ formation. She, together with 3 other women, established what is known today as the Philippine Genome Center. Next is Mary Suzette Angeles. She is a research specialist at the Molecular Diagnostics and Cellular Therapeutics at the Lung Center of the Philippines. She is part of the team that provides immune cell therapy and other molecular tests that patients with cancer and other degenerative diseases have to undergo. And here are the current discoveries in the field of genetics. A useful RNA that caps the chromosome, a new protective mechanism against chromosome shortening discovered in Switzerland at October 2020. Okay, a new genetic cause of hearing loss was discovered in Netherlands on July 2020 as well, and they had an RNA warrior, a small RNA that regulates SARS-CoV-19 infection has been found in USA September 2020. Looking into mammoths past through, through the DNA, the scientists determined possible cause of the final extinction of woolly mammoths. Okay, it was published in the USA February 2020. Okay, and the last is ecology. It is the scientific study of interaction that determines the distribution and abundance of organisms. The word ecology was coined by German zoologist Ernst Haeckel, who applied the term ecology to the relation of animal both to its organic as well as its inorganic environment. So ecology, yeah, the main aim of ecology is to understand the distribution of biotic or the living factors and the abiotic and the non-living factors of the environment. The biotic and abiotic factors include the living and the non-living factors and their interaction with the environment. Okay, so again, ecology deals with the organism, with the study of organisms with its environment. So let's discuss the history of ecology. The ecology started, actually there is no a firm history or a firm record where or when ecology was has started. Okay, during the pre-18th century, ecological thought is said to derive its root from the early teachings of philosophy, ethics, and politics. Aristotle and Theophrastus were considered as the one of the first ecologists who had the interest of studying plants and animals. Theophrastus has described several interrelationships that exist between living organisms and their environment. So by the way, Theophrastus is the father of botany. During 18th century, the first school of thought is the Arcadian Ecology. So by the way, in the early 18th century, two schools of thought dominated growing scientific study of ecology. The first one is the Arcadian Ecology, which advocates for the simple, humble life of man and harmonious relationship with man and nature. On the other hand, the second school of thought, known as the Imperial Ecology, believe in the establishment of man's dominance over nature through the exercise of reason and by hard work. Okay, during 19th century, countries such as Great Britain, Portugal, and Spain have set several expeditions to discover new natural resources and to make records about them. So there are there are several scientists who is involved in 19th century. First, we like Alexander Humboldt, Charles Darwin, Ernest Haeckel, who coined the term ecology. We also have Edward Seuss and Eugene Warming. Okay, so there are a lot of scientists as well who are involved in the during this century. Okay, here we have Alexander Hamdul, reportedly an impressive number of species, particularly for plants, which he thought to explain their geographic distribution with respect to their geological data. Next, we also have in this year, during the 19th century, Charles Darwin proposed his theory of evolution based on natural selection and adaptation. During 1869, Ernst Haeckel coined the term ecology. Since then, ecology became the study of relationships of organisms with their environment. During 1875, Edward Seuss first defined the term biosphere from Greek bios, which is life, and sparia, which is sphere, as the system composed of living organisms and their environment. In 1879, not long after the symbiosis of living together in more or less intimate association or close union of two dissimilar organisms was first described. During 1895, Eugene Warming introduced the discipline of biogeography. Biogeography, as its name suggests, it is the study of geographic distribution of living things. Okay, so during 20th century, during 1920, the study of human ecology has emerged. The goal of this discipline was to increase the role of ecological science in the management of cities and residential places. And during 1926, Vladimir Vernadsky, in his book entitled The Biosphere, redefined biosphere as the global ecological system integrating all living beings and their relationship, including their interaction with the elements of the lithosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. Also, during 1935, Arthur Tansley coined the term ecosystem as the biological community of interacting the organisms and their physical environments. Yeah, so that is the definition of ecosystem. It refers to the interaction of an organism to their physical environment. And during 1940, Patrick studied the interdependence of organisms, particularly freshwater ecosystems. She developed methods to measure the health of a stream. During 1950, the harmful effects of pollution to ecosystems became known to people. Eugene Adam during 1953 and Howard Adam. So Howard Adam is the father of Eugene. Wrote the first ecology textbook, and ecology became a university course. During 1960, the discipline of ecology gained much public prominence because of the widespread concern for the state of the environment. During 1970, James Lovelock introduced the term Gaia, or the idea that the whole Earth is one living entity and will ensure its own survival even if humans destroy themselves. During 1971, UNESCO launched the research program Man and Biosphere in the goal of increasing the awareness of humans about their relationship with nature. And during 1978, conservation of biology established as a discipline focusing on environmental management. So that is the a quite brief history of ecology. So again, there is no firm record when or where ecology has started. Okay, so first, one of the famous scientists who contribute to the field of ecology is Eugene Pleasants Adam. So Eugene Adam is also called the father of modern ecology, brought the word ecosystem into common parlance by making it the organizing concept in his 1953 Fundamentals of Ecology. We also have Charles Alton. He was a towering figure in the field of ecology in general and animal ecology in particular. Although there were antecedents, he was a chief architect of the concept of the pyramid of numbers and one of the inventors of the concept of food chain food web, and ecological niche. When we say ecological niche, it is the specific role of an organism in an ecosystem. He also helped found the field of animal ecology. We also have Professor John Lander Harper. He revolutionized plant ecology and had perhaps a greater impact on its development as a modern science than any other ecologist in the 20th century. George Hutchinson. He was one of the foremost figures in ecology during the 20th century. He strongly advocated the quantitative approaches to the studying ecological problems. He is particularly known for revamping an existing concept, an ecological niche, into a more robust and explicit idea in which a species distribution is mapped onto axis of environmental variation. Okay, we also have, okay, so now, let's start with the Filipino scientists. So one of the Filipino scientists who contributed in the field of ecology. First is Dr. Anthony Chu. Dr. Chu has made a significant contribution to the country and to the international community through his environmental expertise. Next is Dr. Emeline Q. Espiritu. Dr. Espiritu has contributed with great impact to the environmental science throughout her career. She is a known expert in water quality and water pollution and is a pioneer in the field of exotoxicology in the country. Her researches on different environment pollutants, particularly in microplastics, have raised awareness and insights in its effect to the environment. Okay, and last, Dr. Ian Navarrete. Okay, so he has made a significant contributions, particularly in the studies on the understanding of the carbon stock of mangrove forest, which is an important focus or vital focus in the conservation of initiatives and climate change studies. Aside from this, he is exceptionally productive in his scientific career, with his published influential journals in the field of environmental soil science and agriculture. Okay, so now the current discoveries in the field of, it is ecology. So even bats are not immune to extinction. Common foot bats are also suffering from urbanization, study find. Okay, an ocean is not a desert when it comes down to microbes, meaning to say the ocean is one of the most unexplored part of the earth, so it's not surprising that scientists can still discover a lot of things from the ocean, such as that there are a lot of microbes on the ocean. Calling the fish back. Scientists have found a novel way to attract fish to dead reefs and restore ecosystem. Okay, so that's all for my report. So let's end this lesson by the quotation of Brian Greene: "Science is a way of life. Science is a perspective. Science is the process that takes us from confusion to understanding in a manner that's precise, predictive, and reliable. A transformation for those lucky enough to experience it, and that is empowering and emotional." Thank you for listening.